Thank you, everyone. Thank you. I wanted to welcome Rebecca here. Her home is in South Florida. I assume she timed this to be able to coincide with the most spectacular weather in the nation, which is right here in Western New York. So good, smart woman. I can tell she's smart, and what a great leader of this extraordinary company. So thank you, and also to Richard Allen, the president. We'll be hearing from Richard Dewey, and of course, David Cummings. I'm a little partial to local government officials, having served 14 years on a town board, so I feel your pain, and I also, to the other representatives from towns and supervisors, thank you for being really where the rubber meets the road. When these projects come through, you also have to be listening to your constituents, and there's a lot of anxiety, and what's this going to do to my neighborhood, and is this going to disrupt my quality of life? And to have a project like this, be able to explain to people, no, you're going to be okay. This is the first one of nature of this kind we've had over in 40 years. Is that right? 40 years, that's extraordinary. But it's going on existing right-of-ways, and that's how we should get these done. So I want to thank all the local officials and all the members of your teams who had to do so much work to get this over the finish line. Why am I here today? I'm really partial to the name. I love the word Empire State Line. It just kind of reminds me of the grandeur of New York State and what we strive for. We're very aspirational here in the state of New York. We dream big, we dream boldly, and we actually accomplish extraordinary things. So you're part of that story, and I want to make sure that when it comes to energy transformation, and we have the right transmission lines to do it. We have incredible sources of power here, right in our backyard, Niagara Falls, and how we've harnessed that for so many generations. And I want to thank my partners at NYPA here as well for the work they do. But we had to undo a bottleneck. I mean, there's so much energy that has to come, as you said, replace pre-existing sources that no longer were there, because we have to make sure we transition to clean energy. How do you get the clean energy to people? You have to build new transmission lines. And so I thank you for being a partner with us in state government to accomplish that important goal. And as you've heard a couple times, we do proudly have the most ambitious energy goals in the nation. And if they're not, we'll one-up it a little bit more, because we're always going to be the best. This is New York. We're a little bit bold. Rebecca, you'll learn that about New Yorkers. We're very bold and proud of our state. We are going to have 70% of electricity from renewables by 2030. That is extraordinary. That is extraordinary. And when we accomplish that, and I'm sure you'll all be here by 2030. A little while ago, it sounded like so far off into the future. No, we're all going to be here in 2030. You're going to know on this day you are part of that energy revolution. Your participation here today means you are part of this story of how we decided intentionally to shift from fossil fuel energy sources and say, no, we're going clean, we're going renewable, and we're going to be protecting our environment. So renewable energy across the state is so important to us. We just authorized a number of major lines that are going to be powering New York City, Clean Path New York, Champlain Power Express. People thought those were almost too bold in their scale, too ambitious. And I said, no, we can get this done. We're New Yorkers. So that'll help take care of New York City's energy challenges, but also right here in Western New York, a little partial to Western New York. I know Western New York. I used to represent this area. So I want to make sure that the points closest to those energy sources also are served with low-cost, reliable power. And that's what we're doing here today. And as you heard the words 37 megawatts of clean energy, 3,700. And I said, well, what does that mean? For people like me, what does that actually mean? That's 1.5 times the capacity of the Robert Moses Niagara hydroelectric plant. So we're talking something rather extraordinary here. And I said, what will that do? Well, it's going to reduce carbon emissions by 7.4 million tons. Okay, what does that mean? That's the equivalent of getting 1.5 million cars off the road every year. That's the impact on our environment of what we're doing here today and why we're doing it. And not the least of which is also how we save our consumers on their bills. This will save, over the lifespan of this project, over $950 million in reduced demand and congestion and production cost saving, and that goes back in the pockets of our consumers. So I want to give a big round of applause to NextAir for getting the job done. These are extraordinary accomplishments, but also, how was this built? It was built by the best labor you can find, and that is by Western New York Building Trades. I want to thank The laborers represented by Sam Capitano here. We had over 150 labor jobs. Those are great jobs. There's a lot of dignity in this, and all those workers need to know when they look up the work that they did, their handiwork, that they're actually part of challenging all of us to do better for future generations. And it doesn't hurt that results in $3.5 million in local revenues for the local municipalities. Let's give a round of applause for all of those people watching your budgets. And this is an important time. Earlier this week, I made some other clean energy announcements. Why we talk about this so much? Because we are the first generation to really feel the effects of climate change. We truly are. The unbelievable effects of the climate and what's happening in other parts of our country, but even here in New York State, we had a hurricane. I took office less than a year ago. My first week on the job, I had not one but two hurricanes slamming New York City, shutting down our subways. It was extraordinary. That never happened before. And there's a direct correlation between climate change and what's happening to our climate itself. So we're the first generation to really feel the effects. We're also the last generation that can do something meaningful about it. And that's why today's story is so important. It's not just about us here today, but it's also about future generations. And as the first-time grandmother, I'm really focused on future generations because I have a little tiny baby that's looking to all of us to make the decisions today that'll lead to a much brighter future for them tomorrow. So I want to thank all of you for being here today. We're going to continue our bold efforts, but this project here today, an important cornerstone in our efforts to literally save and protect our planet, power homes and businesses, lower cost to our consumers, and creating jobs in the process. If this is not a win-win, I don't know what it is. But so thank you, everybody. Congratulations on the great success here.
Thank you, Governor Hochul. Our next speaker is Rich Dewey. Throughout a career spanning 2 decades with the New York ISO, Rich has been an instrumental partner for organizations like NEATNey, as well as the state of New York, as we continue to work together to meet the ambitious and important goals outlined in the CLCPA. Rich and his team at the NISO are charged with not only managing the existing transmission grid, but also planning for it. The NISO planning staff administered this first Order 1000 competitive process, a process that has since been followed twice more times to identify and solicit transmission projects critical to the state's climate goals. Please join me in welcoming the President and CEO of the New York ISO, Rich Dewey.
Thank you, Rich, for that introduction. Thank you, Rebecca, for inviting me here today, and thank you, Governor Hochul, for showing your energy towards our transition to a clean energy future. At the New York ISO, we've got 3 main responsibilities as I see it. One is reliability of the system, so making sure that lights stay on for New Yorkers through thick and thin, good weather, bad weather, high load season and low load season construction, and it's the most vital part of our mission to make sure that we preserve that service, which is so central to not only the economy but the society of New York. We also administer wholesale markets, and that's really designed to make sure that the spirit of competition delivers the most cost-effective solution for New Yorkers and the economy within New York. And also because reliability doesn't happen overnight, the planning process to look 10, 20, or more years ahead to try to anticipate what the needs of the grid are going to be are just so critical to make sure that we've got the right resources in place when we need them in place. Governor Hochul used the word transformation in describing the grid, and that's a pretty apt description. The power grid that we have in place today is not going to be adequate to serve the needs of New Yorkers into the future. We're really going through a radical transition where not only the supply is being replaced by clean energy solutions, but also the infrastructure that needs to be in place needs to be upgraded both from a capacity and a technology standpoint. This transition requires cooperation across all the New York State agencies, cooperation between the federal agencies in New York State and the local communities, as well as the utilities that are in place, like NextEra and the incumbent utilities within New York. I'm really proud and excited that this project demonstrates a win across every facet of that spectrum of responsibilities. It enables us to be able to maximize the output of the Niagara facility, a clean energy hydro facility that's such a gem for New York's operational infrastructure, opens up imports, economic imports and clean energy imports from Ontario when that makes sense, and also opens up Western New York for more development of clean energy resources, which we know is going to be so important to be able to meet our goals, which we will. The process that we took, it was really in collaboration with the New York State Public Service Commission and the ISO staff to identify what the needs were of this particular facility. We ran a solicitation that had dozens of competing projects, and NextEra really scaled the bar higher than anybody else in terms of the innovation that was presented as well as the cost effectiveness of the solution. So we were happy to select that project, and it's just been actually a pleasure working with the NextEra staff as we go through and got to this point now that we've implemented it. I used to use an old tagline that it's been, I was in 8th grade the last time that a brand new transmission project on the bulk system was completed like this. I got to come up with a new tagline because this is really a monumental event and likely be the first of many to come. When you think about what the needs are of the infrastructure and the capability we need to have of the transmission system that needs to be in place, it's going to be important that we make sure that we've got that facility, that capability, and more importantly, the technology to be able to move that clean energy power that's just going to be such an important part of our future going forward. So congratulations to NextEra and congratulations to the team that pulled this off. I couldn't be prouder to stand here with you today and commemorate the completion of this project. Special thanks, I want to mention the New York State Public Service Commission. It was really a tight partnership between the New York ISO and the Public Service Commission to bring the solicitation in place and pick the right project, which we did. I also want to thank the utilities through the implementation. It's when you start doing big construction projects on the power system, it's tough to maintain reliability and clean operations, so tight scheduling between NYPA and National Grid and NextEra, and that has gone off as smoothly as possible. And lastly, I want to thank Governor Hochul. Your enthusiasm about clean energy goals and the partnership that all the state agencies represent with the New York ISO is really a breath of fresh air, and we look forward to the next decade as we move forward to the transition of this power grid and the achievement of our clean energy goals. So, thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Our next speaker is Sam Capitano. Sam has been a member of Labor's Local 210 for 36 years. We certainly could not have completed this project without the cooperation of Sam and his team, and we're glad that he's with us here today. Please join me in welcoming Sam Capitano to give us a few words.
Thank you, Rich. Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me today. As Texas is announcing today rolling blackouts, I think it's just fitting that we have this Empire State Line, and I really would like to thank NextEra for this Empire State Line, which has been such a great addition to our community, and I'm hoping that we have a new lifelong resident here in New York State in NextEra, and I'm envisioning more projects to come. I don't know, maybe I'm a visionary, but I see more projects to come, and it's really encouraging. There's been a lot of man hours contributed to our funds, pension funds, health funds with this project, training new apprentices, training the new era of workers in the industry coming up, and we need to replenish the ranks, and NextEra has been a great partner in that. And Rich and Rebecca, thank you. Governor Hochul, with your ambition, tenacity, it's just inspiring. Everything New York you do is just great, and I thank you for that. So let me just say a few words about this Empire State project. What a great project it's been. NextEra has been a terrific partner for our local labor community, and we've enjoyed working with their subsidiaries and general contractor, JWD Dotto. Great partnership with them, great company to work for. Our members really enjoyed working with them. This project was built and completed on an accelerated schedule, proving again delivering complex projects on time as possible when all the stakeholders are working together. The construction team, including the local labor contingent, worked long hours through a very wet summer last year and a typical but not less challenging Western New York winter. Construction began in March of 2021, and 16 months later to be on the grid is just amazing. This extensive preparation and civil construction at the Dysinger Switchyard, located just north of here, on a site that's just 2 summers ago was an agricultural field. A portion of the new switchyard was energized in December of last year. Now fully operational, it is a critical hub for New York's transition grid. As crews worked through last summer and fall and into the winter, we began to see other items rise over the horizon as over 150 new steel structures were erected and wire installed over the course of 20 miles from Dysinger to another newly switchyard known as East Stoll. When you drove in here today, you probably noticed some of the towers that we've erected here. A glimpse of the new structures on the right-of-way. The steel from these structures, thanks to Governor Hochul, is now built in America. 95% of these steel structures are built in America with the Build America Act. The Empire State Line now shows what's possible through working together. About 150 local tradespeople were employed over 15 months of construction. Each one of them brought a different skill and expertise to this project to ensure a timely, safe completion. As New York continues to strive and reach our nation's leading climate goals, as outlined in the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, it's important to pause and celebrate a project that is an early success story in enabling a cleaner future, the Empire State Line. Not only is this project a step towards our greener future, it was done with local labor, creating family-sustaining, prevailing rate jobs in the clean energy industry that will drive this transition into the future. New York not only talks the talk, we are doing it. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam. Now I'd like to introduce our final speaker today, Newstead Supervisor David Cummings. As I mentioned earlier, our partners in local government were instrumental in supporting Neatney and our contractors through the pre-construction and construction phases of this project. Supervisor Cummings has served the town of Newstead as supervisor since 2006, following a long career at Buffalo State College and the U.S. Air Force. Throughout our work on the Empire State Line project, he has been accessible, responsive, and a true partner. Please welcome Newstead Town Supervisor David Cummings.
Excuse me. On behalf of the citizens of the town of Newstead, welcome to all of you. Being the last speaker is always an interesting position to be in because you've heard it all. There's not much more I can say. There's not many more praises I can give as far as the details, but I do have a couple things that I would like to relate, speaking from a small town. As I see my other supervisors in the audience and council members, this went through small towns in Western New York, and I think the relationship between each town was not any different than with the town of Newstead. We had a great relationship with NextEra. It's been quite a trip. From the start, NextEra has been a good neighbor, a partner in building this transmission line, not only through the town of Newstead, but other communities. From the very beginning, NextEra has worked well with our community and provided excellent communication. Special thank you would be to 10, 15 different people, but I do have to point out Steve Simonelli, who over the last 2 years attended the town board meetings, and I hate to admit this, but probably has a better attendance record at the board meetings than any of the board members and myself. But, so thank you to Steve for being there. As a representative of NextEra, the town of Newstead has worked with him, he provided weekly reports to our boards meetings as well as daily reports related to any special events that were happening with the project, such as when the helicopters would come through, because in a small town, people notice different things and they call the town board and want to know what the heck's going on, and you better have some kind of answer, you know, and you can't BS them because they're your neighbors. You know? The town of Newstead also has received approximately $190,000 in the Akron School District, just over $1 million this year alone and related to the project. So economically, it's going to help out down the road. NextEra Energy Transmission, New York State's Empire, which I agree, it's a great name. Line showed throughout the project how to build a complex project with respect to all the neighbors involved. Over the years, I have been involved in several other local town matters, and NextEra, by far, has been the nicest and easiest company to work with, especially on such a large project. We congratulate NextEra on a job well done. Thank you.
All right, thank you, David. Now it's the time and the moment we've all been waiting for. I'd like to invite all of today's speakers and to invite Matt Valley, President of NextEra Energy Transmission, and Michelle Wheeler, Vice President of Regulatory and Political Affairs, to gather around for the ceremonial ribbon-cutting ceremony. And then following the ceremony, please feel free to enjoy refreshments and mingle. We've set up an agricultural display sourced from Niagara produce that you can take home with you and enjoy a healthy meal, and to show our support and thanks to the many local farmers working in this area and along the transmission right-of-way. Any leftover produce will be donated for Feed More Western New York, a local organization that we've partnered with as part of our commitment, a community that has supported this project. We've also brought along some of our technology that we use in our business today, and we think you'll find interesting, so please check that out as well. And thank you all for attending, and have a safe day.